Today we're going to look at the structure of our note application. We're not really going to look much at code. We're just going to look at the code pieces that define the structure. Chiefly that's done in the app delegate, but we want to look at some of these other classes just to get an overview of what our notes application is going to look like. So setting up the app delegate here, we're just going to look at the pieces and parts of our application and how to set them up and how to get them going. We're going to have a navigation controller in the app delegate, and then we're going to embed our root view controller, which is the main notes list controller, into that navigation controller as its root view controller. We'll be adding a table view to the root view controller, and then the root view controller, which is not a UI table view controller, but actually a UI view controller object, that is going to have to adopt the table view delegate and table view data source protocols, and then declare the methods and define the methods that are in those protocols that are required. So we'll have to do that piece by hand. Then we'll look at the model, and just as an overview, we'll look at some of its methods and how we instantiate that model within the root view controller. In the model, we're going to override the default initializer, and this will allow us to load the notes from a plist when we instantiate the model. Then we're going to look at some other view controllers, the adding and sorting and detail view controllers. We'll look at referencing them from the root view controller and communication between those view controllers back to our main controlling view controller in model view controller. I'm saying controller a lot, but the reason is that we're not just talking about view controllers in this context, but we're also talking about controller in the context of model view controller with a capital C, the controller that controls all the communication within our application. And that, in this case, is our main list controller, and for that reason, really, we're calling that root view controller. We'll look at a protocol that we set up called Note Delegate, and this is how the root view controller is going to respond to actions through delegation on those three other controllers, the sorting controller, the adding controller, and then also the detail controller for the notes. So let's take a look at some of this. Now we set this up as a empty application, and the reason that we've done that, and instead of using a simple single view application or some other template, is because we would actually have to tear down some of the stuff that is created for us in order to get to a place where we can start. So many times we create an empty application and build up rather than going from a single view application or a multi-view application or whatever we want and then tearing down before we can begin. So here in our app delegate, we've declared two additional properties, and this is a UI navigation controller called nav controller and a root view controller object that is in my object hierarchy over here that I'm just calling root view controller. When we synthesize these, we want to synthesize them with a different name, and the reason is that we don't want to be able to refer directly to window or nav controller or root view controller in any sort of easy way as IVARs. We want to go through self, and the reason we want to go through self dot window or self dot nav controller is because we want these methods to be called. The getter and setter, we want them to be called. If we just refer to underscore window in this case, and we'd have to type an extra underscore to do that, then we're not calling the getter. So here, the window is instantiated as it always is in the template code with a frame of the main screen's bounds. We instantiate the root view controller first because I'm going to put it as the nav controller's root view controller. So we instantiate it first by allocating it and initting it with a nib name, and it is here, root view controller.zib. We leave off the zib, and then we say bundle nil. Bundle nil is a shortcut or an alias for this bundle. So if we say bundle nil, we're dealing with this application's bundle. Of course, if we want to refer to some other application's bundle, we could do that. If we did that, however, we would have to refer, instead of bundle nil, to bundle and then the other applications bundle. So now here we place the root view controller as the root view controller of a navigation controller. We set the title on that root view controller. Then the standard code or the default code goes ahead and sets the background color of the window to white. We really don't have to do this. We could comment this out at this point. And then we add the subview, however, onto the window, and that's the nav controller's view. And Windows made key invisible, and we're on our way. So this is the only change that really needs to happen to the root view controller, or to the app delegate. And really, it only sets up a nav controller, sets up a root view controller object, and puts that root view controller in as the first view in that nav controller. So now we can pop and push navigation controllers, we can pop and push view controllers within that navigation controller by referring to this root view controllers dot nav controller, and that will give us a nice user interface that works well for users. And here's our root view controller object. This one imports adding and sorting and note detail view controllers, and it also imports the model, and the model is notes.h. So let's look at the model. Now here's our model. We can see that we have two properties. NS Mutable Dictionary is notes, and this is going to be the main, actually this is going to be the data for our entire application, is this NS Mutable Dictionary called notes. Since we're going to be adding and deleting notes from the dictionary and sorting the dictionary keys, we want that to be mutable, not immutable. We also have a NS integer here called sort field. We're going to talk about this later when we talk about the model's code in depth. Actually 5 methods to add a note, delete a note, load notes, and save notes. And we're going to talk about these methods again, but the only thing I really want to talk about in this video is here when we initialize. We're overriding the default initializer. Anytime we do this, we need to call through to super and get this class's initialization from the superclass and initialize it using that superclass's method. But here, the only reason we're doing this is to load the notes on this class into our notes database, dictionary. So that's really all we're doing. If notes doesn't already exist, we need to override the getter so that notes can be synthesized, actually created. And notes is an NS Mutable Dictionary. We allocate it, and we init it with a capacity of 5, and we're off. So in our root view controller, we also include or import the adding view controller, sorting view controller, and the detail view controller, and we want to look at those now just very briefly. First of all, here's our note view controller. And we see that we have a UI table view and 2 buttons on the view. The table view, the bottom has been pushed up to allow space for these 2 buttons to appear. This table view, however, needs to have its delegate and data source object set. And those are set to files owner. And the reason this works is because files owner, even though it is a UI view controller, get rid of that, it adopts UI table view delegate and UI table view data source. And in so doing, and defining the methods for table views, such as table view number of rows in section, and number of sections in table view, and self-erode index path, and also did select row at index path, which we'll look at. By doing that and adopting the protocol, it can control a UI table view object on itself, even though this root view controller is a subclass of UI view controller, not table view controller. So this is a way to embed a smaller version of a table view, if you will, into a UI view controller. When we look at adding view controller, this is going to be pushed when that add button is pressed here. Adding view controller just has a space for the title and the space for the note content. We can set the category, and then we can save the note. And all of these things are hooked up in the usual way. And we're going to look at that in another video. The sorting view controller, similarly, here's our view. These are I'm drawing a blank here. What are they called? Segmented controls. I have two of them. If we decide to sort notes by time, then this will be enabled, and the alpha will be set to 1, and we can sort either by oldest first or newest first. And then sort fires a delegate method, just as adding view controllers save fires a delegate method in the root view controller. The note detail view controller, similarly, the only thing that's different here is that these two fields have both been disabled as far as user interaction is concerned. In other words, I don't want to be able to for the user to change a note. I have no way here to save a note. I can set that up for a different version, but simply put, in this version, I don't want the user to be able to change or edit notes. And this email button will fire a delegate that we'll talk about in a different discussion, and then the delete button also fires a delegate. So let's look at those delegates. Here's a protocol called Note Delegate, and this protocol is imported in all three view controllers, the adding, the sorting, and the note detail view controller, and then it's adopted by the root view controller. So here's our adding method, note taken with title and content and category. Here's our deletion method, note deleted with key, and then here's our sorting method, sort notes order by field number and sort code. So we'll talk about all of these things when we dig deeper into implementation. Thank you very much.